Hi, this is Mark Vila with ColDesi, and today we're here to talk about digital heat effects and layering it with heat transfer vinyl to create a look just like this. This is a popular question when folks are asking about white toner printer transfers, are how can I do glitter, or how can I layer this with heat transfer vinyl when I need a specific look that can only be provided by heat transfer vinyl. So we're going to do just a quick step-by-step, and it's just really easy to do, and which is what I love about it. And I get to use, honestly, my two favorite machines whenever we're doing demonstrations, which is the Digital Heat FX 8432, which is just super fun. I love it, and once I got into using white toner transfers, I use them all the time. And then our GraphTech cutting plotter, and it's the newer model, the CE 7000, and I just find these things to be really quick, particularly easy to do. There's not a lot of tricky stuff going on, and you can create some beautiful looking apparel like this that honestly a lot of your competition maybe can or won't do, especially on a short run. So we've got a really high quality tee with a fantastic transfer, and we'll show you guys how we did it. We're at our GraphTech cutting plotter. This is a CE 7000. This is not just your average hobby cutter here. This is a commercial grade cutting plotter. It's really fast. You can do a ton of transfers at once. It's absolutely one of my favorite machines to work with. And as you can see, it's going to blast through this glitter part of the transfer really quickly. So I went ahead and I sent 2 copies of our big wave art onto one sheet of our Easy Peel transfer paper, and this is on our Digital Heat FX 8432 printer. And just to tell you what's happening here, the transfer's coming through. All the colors are being printed in one single pass, and this is now ready to have our polymer added so we can go ahead and turn it into a transfer. So what we do is on our next step, we have our transfer that we just printed out, and as I mentioned, it prints all the colors at once, which is great, especially if you've done heat transfer vinyl before. You have to do all those colors in a different step. So I love that about these transfers. And I'm going to go ahead and we start by putting our transfer down, and then here is we have our polymer sheet. This essentially is what's going to turn it into a transfer. So we put this down on our heat press, finishing sheet, and we're going to go ahead and heat press it. Okay, so our polymer has only adhered to our toner, and that's why a lot of folks call this a weedless system, because essentially we're turning it into a transfer without having to weed out any of the adhesive or anything like that. So this is essentially ready to go on a shirt. Now we have essentially 2 transfers. We've got our Digital Heat FX white toner transfer, and this one's already had the polymer applied to it, as you saw in the heat press, and that's a weedless process. And now we have the glitter portion of our transfer. This is going to add some pop to our t-shirt here, provide a really great look, but this does have the step of weeding, which is not too bad when you're using our Triton Heat Transfer Vinyl. All right, well, we're ready to finally make our shirt and decorate it finally with our San Diego Big Wave Surfing and our glitter Big Wave overlay. So the first step that I really just want to do is I just want to make sure that it lines up right and it looks good. So we're not doing anything right now besides just taking a look at it. Everything lines up perfectly, so I'm ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and just start off by putting aside our heat transfer vinyl. That's our Triton glitter heat transfer vinyl, and just putting on just our transfer, and we're going to go ahead and put this under the heat press and get this set into our shirt. Just to let you know what we're working with here, this is a ladies Sport Tech shirt. It's a V-neck, and you can find this on colemanandcompany.com. It's a short sleeve. So let's go ahead and press it. This Digital Heat FX transfer is a cold peel, so I'm going to take it off the heat press and go to our next step. All right, so while this is cooling off, we want to let it completely cool off until it's completely cold, and that's how a Digital Heat FX white transfer works, where you actually need to, the polymer that's on the back needs to completely get back to its solid state, and that's what's going to bind it to the shirt. So we'll talk about the shirt though for a minute, because folks ask what type of material we're using. And this Sportech shirt is actually a 95% polyester, 5% spandex, but it feels as soft as cotton. So it feels almost like cotton, even though it's a spandex blend. And this is really popular now, so if you want something that looks good and feels good, and you can apply both vinyl and a digital heat effects transfer to, this is a great shirt for that. So let's go ahead and peel off our transfer, and one quick rip, we'll just take it right off. All right, I'm back at our heat press again, and this is a couple steps, but they're pretty simple. We are going to layer this with our glitter on top of our big wave, but I don't want to do it just yet. The heat transfer vinyl, there's a little bit of a texture here because there was glitter on here, and I want to finish this just a bit with our finishing sheet before I put that on. So I'm going to do that for just a few seconds. So we'll just finish this for about 10 seconds. And I do want to make a little side note tip. When you're working with polyester, it can hold on to your heat pretty well. So I recommend when you use your finishing sheet, you start to move it a little bit and just make sure that you haven't done any damage to your transfer with heat. And as long as it's nice and clean like this, you can go ahead and peel the rest up. If you did happen to notice any little color discoloration in that part, just put it back down, let it cool off for a few more, it'll be fine. Now we're ready to go ahead and add our big wave. And this is the part, it's not too complicated, it's all visual, but I'm gonna make a couple of notes, right? So I'm not gonna put any pressure, just so you can see what this is here, but we wanna line it up evenly. But I noticed a couple things. I noticed that the leg and part of the San Diego is actually is going to be covered by our carrier sheet. We could potentially create a line in the transfer or add a little bit of texture to it that doesn't match the rest of it. So I'm going to try to avoid that as much as possible. There's two ways. Either the entire transfer would have to be covered with the carrier sheet, and if that was the case, it would be fine because the entire transfer would match. Since that's not the case here, I'm going to go ahead and trim this down just a bit more so we can get a better transfer. So I've trimmed it up just a bit. It doesn't need to be anything fancy, just a quick run with the scissors just to get it out of the way of those other areas. Once we're here, go ahead and visually line it up. I recommend focusing on one area. I'm going to focus on this area right here, and the rest, if I got all of this clean, the rest is going to line up just fine. So take a look at how I do that. And there we go, that looks good. What I like about this overlay type of stuff like this is it doesn't have to be perfect. It looks fantastic, whether it's shadowed a little bit to the right, to the left, up or down. Just do your best if you're producing many of these for a business or something like that. You typically want them to try to match as best as you can. But imperfection is actually okay here, so I don't mind just looking at it visually and dropping it real quick, and you're going to see it's going to look amazing. If you do need it to be exact, just make sure that in your design you're preparing and looking for exact points to line it up. So now that we've put this on, we're going to go ahead and heat press it for the same time and temperature that the instructions of the vinyl recommend. So here's our final part where we actually have to remove our heat transfer vinyl, and this is going to be different for each design, or especially if you use different types of vinyl. So I'm just going to say this is the part where you want to be the most careful. You don't want to lift off your digital heat effects transfer, right? But you want your vinyl to stick. So I always just recommend just going with a small portion at first, especially the first time you're doing it. So I've heat pressed this for about 10 seconds or so. I've been talking for about 10 seconds or so, so it's a little bit of a 10-second cool time, and we're just going to peel it up a bit and take a look at how it performs. And right here we'll see it looks pretty good. I've got none of the transfer on my carrier sheet. My vinyl stuck down well, which means I can go ahead and finish that. The last step is, of course, finish it. So here we are with our finished San Diego big wave surfing. This is a really cool, unique look, and what I love about it is we did all of these colors in this design with our kind of weedless white toner system, but we still added the pop of glitter with a small heat transfer vinyl transfer just laid right on top and simply applied.